Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today on Bridging the Visibility Gap in Supply Chains. My name is Oana Jinga, and I'm Chief Commercial and Product Officer at Dexory. And I'm excited to be here with my colleague Todd to discuss some key insights and strategies for enhancing supply chain visibility. Just a reminder, we also have a colleague working in the background. So if you do have any questions or for ourselves or anyone else on the Dexory team, please use the chat function and we will make sure to address them as soon as possible. Todd, would you like to also introduce yourself as well, please?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, my name is Todd Boone, and I'm actually looking after our North American market from a Dexory standpoint, which has been actually a lot of fun and growing in an exciting manner since we announced our entry into the market in February. So happy to get into it, and let's dive right into the content.
Thanks, Todd. So I think one of the key objectives for today is to unravel the transformative power of real-time data across the supply chain landscape. And maybe what better way of doing that than actually understanding the opposite? So trying to dive a little bit into how the lack of data can affect our sectors, just kind of the wider supply chain industry. And it's kind of no secret that in today's global landscape, supply chains are constantly challenged by a multitude of external and internal factors. And there's no secret that to succeed, the sector overall just has to become much more resilient. I mean, you've got, of course, kind of global wars. You have like an economy that's kind of fluctuating in UK especially, but of course some of the other markets even more. Not to mention impacts around sustainability and the overall climate change. All kinds of obviously black swan events that pop up with shipping across obviously the different parts of the world that get disrupted, and from there the whole the supply chain. So I think altogether the whole kind of point of resilience has been becoming a top kind of agenda point for a lot of the C-level executives that we are working with from Dexory's perspective, and so much so that over 57% of organizations are actually increasing their investments in improving supply chain resilience. All, of course, to achieve greater control over the risk exposure that they have, but also to be able to embrace opportunities and demand spikes, because they are not always doom and gloom. Of course, there's always like opportunities to make the most of a situation and actually become successful on the other side. And resilience often requires the balance of opposites, reliability, but also speed, accuracy, but also flexibility. So from that perspective, there's always like that idea of balance that you have to bring together to be able to stay on top of things. And I think 4 years on from the COVID disruption, it's evident that one of the key prerequisites to have a resilient and balanced supply chain is actually visibility. But let's talk about some of the challenges in supply chain visibility altogether. So we know that many organizations struggle with visibility issues, which can lead to significant inefficiencies and hidden costs. And I think with blind spots occurring at all different stages of the supply chain, from the first stages of a product in the hand of a user, there's obviously kind of different steps that can be impacted by that lack of visibility and data. But the warehouses are usually cited as the key blind spots where wherever in the journey those warehouses might be. So to kick us off, let's have a quick poll, just a digital show of hands to get an understanding of our audience's key visibility challenges. So you'll see a question popping up on the screen in a second, and that question is, what do you see as the biggest challenges in having full visibility across your supply chain, specifically when you're thinking about your warehouses actually? So is that silo data? Is that the accuracy of data? Is that actually labor shortage and labor turnover, which automatically kind of leads to gaps in keeping kind of track of information and make sure that information is accurate? Is it a matter of technology constraints, or is it actually a lack of actionable insights, so that from that data that is collected to actually know what to do with it? So give everyone a second to reply. Interesting. Todd, what do you think about the responses?
Yeah, what's interesting here is a lot of times these challenges point back to a lack of visibility within the operations. And, one example, one of our clients discovered that they were wasting over 6,500 hours annually on stock checks due to inaccurate inventory data. And when you think about it on a basic hourly rate, this is like $150,000 alone just to count inventory. And it doesn't even get you to real time data, but rather glimpses within the operation at a specific point in time. And typically only, partial glimpses as you go through that operation versus a holistic view. And when, interestingly, so despite this investment and this cost in going and doing these manual stock checks, once we automate and scan an entire location, and we do that in a single day, what we find is that often the inventory accuracy is not quite as high as they had hoped, and in fact is typically 3 to 5% less than what they initially thought. And that's where that 91 to 95% on this slide comes from. And how we get to that data, the important point is that, this measurement is actually based on doing a holistic real-time data of what's in the warehouse at that point in time versus, again, just a snapshot of part of the data and looking at and doing some extrapolation to come to an accuracy figure.
I think absolutely, Todd. And in our deployments, whether in fulfillment or production warehouses and distribution centers, we always identify a big gap between what is perceived to be the accuracy of stock and what the actual physical accuracy is. And for those of you who are not familiar with our solution, we automate any kind of data capture and inventory activities inside warehouses. So using our autonomous robots, we collect information from the racks pretty much in real time. And what's always surprising is when we start to work with the customer, immediately you can kind of notice a big surprise on their face because what is actually physically in the warehouse does not match what they thought the scenario actually is. And if you kind of think, some of these numbers, like for mid-size warehouse, let's say with like 30,000 pallet locations, those percentages can easily lead to 4, even 500 errors per week. And on average, this is kind of industry standard, every error takes about 24 minutes to correct or to address. Can you kind of think about that 500 times up to 24 minutes, the number of hours and just kind of effort and actually just frustration at the end of the day that goes into correcting these issues, especially when they pile up, is enormous. So what usually we see that happens is once people kind of start and kind of colleagues in warehouses actually start working on these discrepancies, just as they happen, just as kind of DexoryView shows them, the accuracy does indeed go to 99.9% very, very quickly and actually stays there because the amount of issues that they have to look at becomes quite minimal every single day. But let's talk a little bit about the financial implications of obviously kind of overall what visibility brings. And some studies have shown that the hidden costs related to these visibility gaps that we were talking about can amount to trillions of dollars globally. I think many customers struggle to right size their inventory, specifically in warehouse operations across e-commerce, which results very, very quickly in stockouts for some products and overstock for the others. And this results, of course, in lost sales, increased holding costs for that inventory, increased labor costs to kind of get to error resolution. And at the end of the day, what everyone's trying to avoid customer dissatisfaction. And don't forget that these stockouts are perceived in that, at the end of the day, they just don't know where the stock is when actually they think that the stock is there, or vice versa. They think the stock is not there and it's still not there. Each company is a bit different, but each of these obviously have an impact at the bottom line. And for example, as we deploy the Dexory solution on sites, what we normally see pretty much on day one is that we locate a lot of lost stock that would have been actually written off potentially the previous quarter or just even the previous year sometime. And maybe without naming names, one of the biggest kind of amounts that we could probably share. We had a customer where we identified over 200,000 pounds worth of lost stock in the first 2 weeks of deployment. Of course, they were very happy to have found it, but also very frustrated that it was at that time. And our customers are kind of find it very easy to attribute kind of this data to the specific at the end of the day, like the specific impact to their business, because as we were saying earlier, an error does have an immediate kind of knock-on effect on a customer being unhappy or an order not being fulfilled. And that's something that's being tracked pretty much by all of our customers. It's quite easy to understand very quickly what the numbers are that are supporting the business case.
Yeah, and I think building on that, right? These are all examples of how real-time holistic data, which, frankly, has been very elusive to many warehouses to date, but it plays a very crucial role in terms of achieving resilience and optimizing decision making. If you're making decisions based on historical data, it's not really optimizing per se, but it's rather educated guesses. And it could, in fact, be the best path, but it might not be the best path for your operation based on what's changed in the operation since you had that last view. With real-time visibility, you can detect the issues early, you can manage risks effectively, and you can optimize your supply chain, which ultimately results in higher revenue, but also better customer service and satisfaction.
Right, and for instance, I mean, companies using real-time tracking systems like the one that we provide, of course, have seen up to like 20% reduction in stockouts within kind of the first 6 months. So again, versus other types of automation solutions or other kind of solutions that they would bring in, that return of investment is pretty much instant, I would say, if you are to compare with like the usual kind of timeline of 10 plus years for a full automation system, which altogether, I mean, it's just not that it improves the inventory management per se, but just the overall operational efficiency, and it does kind of tap into the revenue almost immediately.
Right. And so a lot of this comes back to, and we talk about the visibility gap, right? And perhaps this is an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into that and what we really mean by that. And when you think of the warehouse, it tends to be a very dynamic place. There's lots of change on a daily or actually even an hourly basis. And every single time something is moved, there's an opportunity for an error to occur. And even in super well-run warehouses where you might have 99% accuracy, that still means that potentially up to 1% of those moves and that dynamic nature could result in an error. And on the flip side, too, achieving consistent full site visibility has been really challenging because it's either something that you can't throw that much labor at it. It's so labor intensive and expensive that companies have been unable to do that. And the technology options that have been available so far they haven't been there, right, to deliver that full holistic visibility on a close to real time or daily basis.
And I think that's definitely true because many warehouses do become the focal points where the visibility tends to falter. I mean, it's very simple to maybe kind of track what comes in, because obviously you have a door that things kind of come through, and also to monitor the stuff that goes out. But what happens with these goods inside the warehouse sometimes is quite a mystery, or like Todd was saying, requires quite a lot of kind of human labor to actually be able to stay on top of, or like in very extreme cases, a lot of discipline, which I think most of the listeners would agree it's quite hard to enforce and keep on track. And I think, as we mentioned earlier, we've often found that despite customers believing that their inventory accuracy is very high, the reality is quite different. And this does lead, again, to wasted time and resources. And I think this speaks to the heart of the issue. If you're basing your decisions of partial view of what you actually think is in the warehouse, or view where there is a visibility gap, you might probably not measure things in the most effective way, and just obviously like act on fake and false data. So the entire kind of running of the operation will not be as cost effective and efficient as hoped. I think to overcome the visibility gap challenge, it's important to have as much data as possible, but just probably as important, that data must be as close to real time as possible as well. And as we were saying earlier, that's why we designed the system that we designed, DexoryView, which is fully autonomous robots that can capture over 10,000 locations, 10,000 pallet locations per hour. I mean, we capture, of course, any kind of identifiers on pallets or goods or boxes. We take high resolution images of that, but also says volumetric data to understand quantities and counts, but also keep track of occupancy. So there's a lot of kind of data that we collect pretty much instantly as the robot goes through the warehouse, process it on the device, and then push it into the cloud. But what this enables is pretty much a wall-to-wall kind of check of a warehouse every single day, which is completely unheard of if you kind of compare to any other solution on the market. Of course, if you're thinking about human labor, that will take sometimes even years. We do have a site that is over 120,000 pallet locations. It does take a year to cycle count that site. It's absolutely crazy to kind of see the impact of them going from that yearly kind of wall-to-wall check to daily wall-to-wall check, and how that site has completely kind of improved. But it's not just that. Obviously, like we kind of get that very, very fast in terms of information. We also make sure that we provide it to our customers in a very easily interactive way, so they can actually do something about the insights that we find immediately. So for example, we don't just identify that there's an empty pallet location, but we also kind of then track back on what was there before, where that pallet went. And especially if one good is in a different location that it should be, we cross-check that information and provide it. And I think to overcome these challenges is absolutely essential to just address the fragmented systems and data silos. So we do integrate with WMS systems or any other systems in the warehouse. We also can feed data back into that to close that data loop, and then provide an overall kind of holistic visibility of the entire site.
And I think building on that as well is, once you start generating this data and capturing, I should say, this data on a daily basis, you can really start to see trends that otherwise would have been, obscure at best. And it allows you to start getting much more advanced in terms of the analytics that you're looking at, and starting to edge into even predictive monitoring in terms of what you suspect will happen based on past patterns. And so there's a lot of value that it can start to unlock, because now you're seeing a much more holistic picture than previously. And I think that builds on one other aspect of this, is I think we've been talking a lot about the overall, inventory visibility that we're building with this solution. But at the same time, we're going to be expanding our sensor suite with this solution, so that when you think of elements such as temperature and humidity monitoring, how important that is for things like the food and pharmaceutical industries. And now you start building a picture of what's in your warehouse, and even the environment itself, and ensuring that everything is actually functioning as it's supposed to be. And when you think of temperature and humidity, imagine being able to understand that in every location, in every area through your warehouse at all elevations, is it at the correct levels in all weather conditions outside? And does that now give you, the audit traceability that you're looking for to be able to showcase, or to have that insight into your operations? And I think building on that as well is, soon we're going to be utilizing things like computer vision to determine things like damaged products, right? And being able to understand things like rack integrity, so that when you have a robot that's patrolling through your facility on a daily basis, it's able to pick out these other or these other items that add value to your overall understanding of your operation. And rather than sending somebody to go pick damaged product, being able to, it's good that it's there, but you also want to have something that's actually now consumable and ready to pick. And now you might be able to make the decision that we need to go perhaps to a different location, or to do a different type of replenishment, so that they can go and get product that's undamaged. So it starts to give you a lot more insights in terms of how you run your actual operation. And I think, the big key takeaway here is that, we're building a picture of the inventory within our digital twin of your warehouse, but we're also leveraging AI and machine learning so that we can enhance that overall visibility and drive even further insights into your operations. And so, although saving money on cycle counts is super important, I think that's just the beginning of the story in terms of the overall insight and visibility that we, and the value within that we can unlock.
I think we can see a quick video of DexoryView in action at some of our customer sites. And I think based on that, think yeah, it'll be great to just remember like to share your questions in the background, and yeah, we'll address them as they go. Thank you so much all for listening in today. I think that's a wrap. I think just to piggyback on obviously what Todd said at the end just before the video, it would be great to kind of have a conversation with you all to try and understand how you can extract more from data. How can you kind of use that data to really have an impact across the entire business? Of course, automating kind of tasks like collecting that data when it comes to inventory, so cycle counting and wall-to-wall counts is one step, and there's obviously a great benefit in doing that with an autonomous solution to reduce obviously the labor cost there. But what's more important is how you can then use that data to tap into different value points across your operation. We have an extensive experience in putting together obviously business cases with our customers, looking at kind of long-term benefits and how they can tap into the power of real-time data to really kind of drive revenue, even kind of win more customers depending on the type of site that they're running, and take that to the next level. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We hope that you found the discussion insightful, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. And certainly if you have any more questions or need more information, please don't hesitate to reach out.